to call myself a holistic movement specialist. I have got, massage skills. I have got shiatsu diploma behind me. I've got Pilates. I've got deep.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting for people to hear stories about, because you mentioned in our last recording that you are originally from South Africa. And so, when did you move to Australia, and how did you get into the work that you're doing now? And do you see yourself in it for the longest term? Like you're going to do it like forever kind of thing. And like, where are you, in terms of as a person, not as a practitioner or a teacher. Yeah. When did you move to Australia?
In 2008, I moved to Australia.
Okay.
And I was never very happy in South Africa, even as a child. I never really connected with the culture or the people. And I'm going to say back in those days, it used to be very difficult to leave South Africa. It still is, because, the currency is a different currency, which is very devalued compared to a dollar, whether it be Australian dollar, Singapore dollar, or an American dollar. So to leave the country and go somewhere was quite challenging because it cost a lot of money. But I did get to go a lot of places. I did a 2-year working holiday visa in the UK. And I just didn't want to go back to South Africa ever. I just thought this is not the place for me. But because of visa issues, so this was the other thing, not only money-wise, but it was no one would accept me because you needed to have a university degree, and I didn't choose to go to university. So no one was accepting me based off of my education status rather than actually what I could provide. And so I felt very... I did not want to go back to South Africa, but I had to go,
Yeah.
Sometimes. And when I got back, I'm talking, this is now over 20 years ago. I was in a corporate environment, so that was all I knew. Like when I left school, I basically went into corporate straight away. And I had a tragic accident happen where my boyfriend was shot dead next to me in an attempted hijacking.
Oh, I see.
And, the first thing that somebody would say was, are you going to leave South Africa now? But I had already tried for years to leave, so it wasn't very easy for me to just say, oh, I'm out of here, packing my bags and going. Having dealt with trauma and lots of people in trauma, you will understand that it takes years and years to get over it. And then, I can talk to you openly about it now, but, catch me on the wrong day and I will break down into tears because I think it just lives with you forever. And South Africa is not a very safe place, and yet just another thing on my list of going, I don't want to be here. But I had to make peace with the fact that I wasn't able to leave at that point and run away either. So I just carried on doing what I was doing, going through my healing journey and then continuing to work. And then I met a man and we traveled to Dubai. And when we came back from Dubai, we had been working there for a year. We were like, we just don't want to be in this country. It just is not favorable for us. So we started to look at other places and we got a sponsorship. We got married and we got a sponsorship to come to Australia on his corporate status. And he said to me at the time, because he knew how passionate I was about Pilates, at this stage I actually hadn't done any qualification in it. I was just, I'd started doing it in 2000 for my own body, and I was always having this image of I wanted to teach this. I didn't understand how, why, or where, but I just knew it was in my cells to teach it. So he said to me when we moved here, I had already been to Australia for a visit once upon a time and found the organization I wanted to learn with. And he said, well, why don't you just give up corporate for a while and go and follow your passion and see where it takes you? So I always am very grateful to him for that decision. It was a tough decision financially for us because we just moved to a new country, but we managed to make it work. We are no longer married, but that's beside the point. I still do give gratitude to him for that decision because I walked into the Pilates environment and just was like, okay, this is what I need to be doing. I always had a healing element to me. I like to tell people my very first massage course I did when I was 15 years old. So I've had a thing for bodies and movement. I did dancing when I was younger, but I was not like a prima ballerina or anything like that. I did modern dancing, but that was my hobby. I really enjoyed doing that. So the idea of movement and bodies just really fitted well with me. So, yeah, I just followed that track. I was very fortunate in the organization I was in to be promoted to then not only having done the qualification, but they invited me into the education side of things. So to present and be a teacher trainer. And that I've been doing for the last 15 years. So I never wanted to open my own studio, which is funny. Right? Because coming from a corporate world, you can see all the things. I used to run studios, but you look at it and you're like, oh, I do not want this hassle. I don't want to have to worry about it at night. I don't want to have to see, does money come into my bank account or not? I literally wanted to walk in the door and walk out the door and have no more responsibility. However, my personality is that I take on responsibility for everything. So even though I was working for other people, I still took the idea on that their business was like my business. And we were here for a week just viewing properties, and I just got this feeling, and I said to my ex-husband, well, I think I need to open up my own studio, because there were very few Pilates studios at that time here on the coast. And I did a business plan. I thought of the name. I had everything just came in a download to me. And I was waking up because of Queensland weather. The sun comes up a little earlier, or it feels like it comes up super early. So I was, waking up really early and finessing this plan all while I was here. And then we went back to Sydney after that week and moved back up onto the coast 3 months later. So it happened very fast. And I would have to say that it was the best decision I ever made, was to open up my own business, because it allowed me to take ownership of everything that I do, the way I do it, the equipment I use, the choices of everything that I have, the staff that I have in the studio with me. I'm a bit particular who I choose to work alongside me. Then, I enjoy that my clients get looked after in all sorts of ways, not just physically. So the people that I will bring into the studio have got their own skill set of personality, additional tools to just being a Pilates instructor. And I have opened my studio is 10 years this month, which is, phenomenal when you look at it, isn't it? It's like, how do people stay in business for 10 years?
Yeah.
Ride the waves of high and low. And, we've gone through pandemic, we've gone through, fires, we've gone through floods. I always say we've gone through those. We've gone through marriages, divorces, births, and deaths. It's like it's all happened in that time. And, I got divorced in the middle of owning the studio, and that was really tough. And, having read Alina's book, I was sending her messages like every chapter I was reading, going, oh my God, I can feel you, because, there were such close similarities between her story and what I had been experiencing as well. And that idea of particularly being left financially unstable, that was the scariest feeling in the world for me, because when I worked in the beginning, like going into corporate, you earn a big salary. Great. You don't have to worry about finances. And then you leave the corporate industry and you come into a healing modality or a fitness modality, and suddenly that bank account goes way down, but your self-worth goes way up, and the ability to help people with simple tasks far outweighs, the bonuses at the end of the year. To me, that was, that's how it is to me. But really having, you have to evolve as a being. You can't just stay stuck of who you used to be, because so many things come your way. You've got to deal with people. That's the first and foremost part of our business, is we deal with people. Forget whether you're movement or therapeutic or whatever, you are dealing with another being and having to understand how they perceive things, how you perceive things. That's a job all in itself. Being a small business owner, as all of us will know, you've got to be the person who fills the gap when the other person is not here. You've got to be, the accountant. You've got to do all those things, you know. And like I say, that those are the things that really make you grow as a person. So, you know, your question was, who am I as a person versus a practitioner? I don't know that there's a big difference between the two of them, to be honest, because, you know, my hobby and my passion is also my business. So if you think of the Japanese Ikigai, you know, those elements are everything that I embody. You know, so when I close my studio over the December break, I get lonely because I'm like, I'm not seeing the people that I normally interact with on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And as nice as it is to have time off, you still are like, I don't know about any of you. Do you find it difficult to switch off?
Sometimes, because of the work that I do, it can be quite heavy going sometimes. So I do enjoy the time alone. You know, sometimes I feel very conflicted. Like, I feel like, especially during the holidays, there's time off, there's a lot of time. Like, a part of me wants to go out and interact with people. Another part of me goes like, oh, I really can't be bothered. You know, so you're in a space of like, I want to, but I don't want to, you know. So that's how I feel a lot of the times when there is a huge space, like, you know, holidays, for example, like Christmas, right? When you have like days off, like a week or 2 weeks, you know, like no one books a session, for example, during that time. And you just feel like, okay, you know, I have time, I can go socialize, I can do things. But then you think, oh, but I really don't want to deal with people. Yeah, so I get into that space sometimes. And so what I do is, you know, I'll just take off, go for a walk, just on my own and go to places where there are people so I can feel the, you know, people energy. I don't have to talk to them. And I'm happy with that. But being able to feel the people energy, I'll go into a mall, sit in a cafe, feel the vibe, have my own meal, no talking. Yeah.
I know you go off into nature to switch off, don't you?
Yeah, I do. That's my go-to. So I sort of compare because, you know, I have a second job and I love my second job. Like, I do my job and I love doing it, and I love making people's experiences good, because a lot of people are forgetting that human touch. So I feel like I'm injecting a little bit of my little thing I can try and offer to help someone feel good. But I do get the balance there, but I really enjoy what I do. And I'm with you, Amanda, like it's the connection that I'm missing. It's that, you know, it's not so much being around the people, it's helping people and helping them, you know, achieve all the things that they didn't think were possible. That's where I get my enjoyment. But I also know that I need to have my own downtime, and that's when I go to nature, because I just feel like I'm just complete. The earthquake was a bit different. That wasn't what I was expecting. So I didn't really get a lot of downtime. That was a lot of fight or flight. Response, but it was an experience. So I'm really hanging out for another nature one as well, because I find that if I get the balance and that replenishes my energy stores, then I feel like I'm refreshed and I can then continue to give, rather than feel like that's what I want to do but I can't because I'm too tired. So if I get the balance, it's really good. But I mean, Amanda, you're not just a Pilates instructor, you know, there's a lot more than that, you know, and, you know, we're very much alike, is that's what you do and that's what you live and breathe every single day, that, you know, that's your job. You're no different to when you're instructing as opposed to when you're having coffee, you know, away from business. You are the same person. And, you know, you are so knowledgeable, and people learn so much about their bodies and the way that they move, and they have a greater understanding of how they operate themselves, all thanks to you. And I don't know if Shamala knows this, and there's not many listeners that would know this either, unless, you know, they've come across with you personally. But I know that in your downtime, I run to nature. Yeah, you go to bodies. So I won't say anything more. So tell Shamala what you did in the States.
So, I said I have been fascinated with the body and movement forever. And I think sometimes we go through these feelings of not being good enough, right? I mentioned that I didn't have a degree from university, but all the studying that I've done over the last, 25 years, I believe I should have like a doctorate. It's just I keep learning. And one of the things I did was I went to an anatomy lab and did a cadaver dissection.
Oh.
When people hear that, they often go to the worst case scenario. They think I'm a serial killer. They Dexter from Netflix. And,
Can you explain what that is, Amanda? Because I didn't know when you first told me. That was my first thing. I went, oh, what's that?
So a cadaver is just, the preferred way of saying a dead body. Yeah. And what it is, bodies are donated to science for us to learn from. And the anatomy lab that I went to in Colorado has got one of the most world famous anatomists, or they don't call it an anatomist, but I can't think of the word now. And the way we dissect is not like you learn at the universities, which I've been to university labs before, where you have like an arm cut off and you get to see the arms and the muscle and the nerves and whatever going through there. This is literally a human form that has, gifted itself to the lab so that people like me can go and learn. So we have the body laid out from the very beginning. We look at the body structure, we see the tattoos or the scars or the whatever it is that we recognize this form. And on day one, the first thing we do is we take off the skin layer. And then you see what is underneath the skin surface. You get to see the texture. We think the skin is super filling, but it's very thin between here and the next layer. But like, what does it mean? Like, the skin layer is our protection from the environment to the next living parts of us. And then we just go every day layer by layer and we remove until we are with nothing left except the bones in front of us. It's a very humbling experience. It's a very confronting experience.
Yeah.
People don't go just on a whim. Like, you really have to think, okay, is this something that I'm going to be able to do? But the learnings from the touching of the textures of a human body, and it's, I'll share something here, which is coming from South Africa. There are Black people, white people. There was apartheid. There was, prejudices on both sides. It feels like apartheid has never ended because it's flipped on its head and it's going the other way now. And you have a bias, and I do have a bias sometimes to a Black person. And I had a Black person, American Black person with me on my team doing this dissection, and I could feel my body just resisting him. And I had to talk myself through it and go, it's okay, there's nothing wrong. He's not going to hurt me. He's not going to harm me. Everything's fine. He's just another person here learning. And it was just on that first day when we removed the layer of the skin. And then, because we had two bodies, then those people are no longer the people. They're not identifiable anymore. And the next layer you see is yellow, because yellow is the adipose tissue layer. And I nearly burst into tears because I stood there and I thought, this man who I've had this prejudice against is exactly the same as me if we just take off the one layer. Like, in a split second, I could actually accept and be so much more interactive with him because I was seeing a different side. So the body that was on the table taught me that I could be more human to the human next to me. Yeah, I mean, I could go on for hours and hours about that dissection. And, it's fascinating what you learn. And every single year I want to go back and do it again. Because, it's like with everything that you do, whether you're doing your gym weights or you're doing Pilates, the work just gets deeper because the first experience is like, what am I doing here? And how am I doing this? I have a scalpel in my hand. I don't know how to hold it. I don't know what to do with the hemostat. And then after like 30 minutes, you are a pro and you're like cutting things you didn't think you'd be able to cut or hold or touch. So, by going again and again, I just think your appreciation for everything just enhances so much more. The connection points. Because we have two bodies that we work on. One team works on one team works on the other. But you can see the similarities, but you can also start to see that everybody is different. So we all have our lungs, we all have our hearts, but do you know what? Somebody's heart's going to be a little bit more enlarged, or somebody's lung has got, cancer through it. So what does that look like? Or that person was a smoker, or, someone's got a hip replacement, someone has a knee replacement. It's just fascinating that we are not exactly the same. We are completely unique.
Yeah. Wow. I can just, as you're sharing your experience, right? I mean, your passion for the human body, the anatomy, the movement, it all comes through, the way you describe your experience. And it's not, to me, it doesn't sound like it's a gross thing that you're doing. It's, it's all part of learning, and, and your passion really comes through. And yeah, amazing.
Not only that, I know that you teach your clients that, Amanda, because you're very visual, I'm very visual, and most other people are visual learners as well. And when they understand the movement and what their body's doing, and, you're in it with them, you're not just telling them, okay, this is what we do, sit here, sit tall, do this, do that. You're like, no, this is your body's intricate. Next minute, you're owning your body, and, you're doing things that you didn't think you could do before, but you're giving them the whole story, not just the surface. You're in the nuts and bolts and everything.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I do is called the Franklin method, and I do a lot of workshops on helping people understand the different parts of the body. The Franklin method uses anatomy to help you understand your brain better, actually. So we use imagery, and we say that the fastest way to change your movement is to change your mind about that movement. So if someone is saying, oh, I can't do this, or oh, I'm really not excited to go to the beach and do my workout, well, the body will experience that for you because it's listening to everything that you're saying. But if you change your mind, and even if it was a difficult exercise, you're like, I'm going to give this my best shot. Or, my biceps are growing as I'm doing my bicep curl. That is so exciting. Like, my shoulders are so excited because this is the best thing that they were born to do this next movement I'm about to do with the weights. Like, if you can talk that kind of language to your cells, your body gets excited, and there's a different chemical and physical reaction that's going to happen to whatever it is that you're doing. And so because I said we teach with anatomy, we teach with the bones of anatomy. So I've got all the models of all the bones, and it just brings me joy. I think it's like if the kid was playing with her toy doll, or with, a little boy with his toy truck or whatever, it gives me that kind of joy to play with the bones and show people how they move, because most people don't realize that the bones move in 3 dimensions. So, in order for our joints to be moving well, they have to work 3-dimensionally to absorb force to be able to work efficiently. And we call that the bone rhythms. So if someone, for example, like a client I had this week, she had issues, she broke her collarbone, broke her shoulder, or broke her arm years ago. Years, I'm talking like 20-something years ago. And her biggest struggle is to put her hair up into a ponytail, or to put her bra on behind like that. It's a very big challenge for her. So I helped her understand her collarbone, how the collarbone moves, rotates each time the arm comes up. So we did that 1 week, and she could get that feeling. She got a little bit more range of movement. She could understand that. And then because I have equipment here, I put her hands holding onto a bar, lying down, and setting her arms over. She could go about that far before she got limited. And then I said to her, okay, the right shoulder was giving her trouble. So I held the bar for her, and she took her hand here and she worked here, because right here is your shoulder blade. When your arm is overhead, your shoulder blade comes to the side of your body. So she put her thumb in there, and I got her to just do a little bit of mobility like that. And with every move, suddenly that arm started to get straighter and straighter. And she was having an emotional reaction on the table going, I have not done this in 20 years.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible. So I sat her up and I said, okay, now reach for your bra. And she just whipped around, and she just said, oh my God, that is the easiest thing I've done ever. How did that happen? So, those are the kind of things that we want to show with the bones, how the body is moving. This is, as Alina was saying, this is how we improve people's lives. Like, I'll go to Alina to get a six-pack and my toned arms and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, that's not really why I'm going, because I want to live a better life internally. I want to feel free in my body. I want to feel like I can jump up and down, rocks if I need to, or stairs. Like, those are the things that are the everyday movements that we want to be able to help people gain and experience. Play with their children, play with their grandchildren, get on the floor, get off the floor, pick up their favorite mug, whatever it is.
I loved the story the post you put up this week of the older people, and they had the ball on each knee. I thought that was amazing, because I can just see their concentration levels just trying to maintain that. Now, I know that movement in itself, like every day people go, oh, I don't need to do that, but there's so much more behind that movement, and that's just the application.
Alina, what was even more inspiring about that story is I didn't make her do that. She did that on her own.
That's amazing.
Around, and I was like, get this on film now, because this is like, when people wait around or whatever, and waiting around sounds terrible, but, in between sessions, or if I'm with somebody else and they're waiting for me to come to them, she was literally having fun. That was the thing. She wasn't doing an exercise, having to count and breathe and whatever. She was enjoying being in the moment, experimenting with what else she could do.
And I think it's amazing. Yeah, she would have been, in her 70s?
Yes.
Yeah.
And her husband are going to Utah now to go skiing for 6 weeks.
Well done. See, you open the door for them, and then the person that they didn't know was there starts to be woken up, and then starts to step through. And it's the application, like that door, of discovering more about them, what that may be, whether it through be a mental or a physical, things that they just did not know that they could do, until someone was there just to help reassure them, show them the way, and then walk them through it. And it's that transition process. That's what I love.
You bring up something that really makes me think of something else, and that is the way we talk to our clients. The words that we use will have a massive impact on their experience with us. So there are often modalities where if somebody is in pain, granted they maybe whatever, I don't know, they've got sciatica or something like that. So that's, pain around the gluteals, which can go down towards the leg or up towards the spine. It's a very debilitating kind of feeling. But they can go for a treatment with someone, and that person will say, oh, you're weak, your glutes are weak, they don't work. Or no, this will never change, or you're doing that wrong. Like, that kind of language does not support the healing process at all.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times what I do in my studio is like, I try not to use negative language. Of course I'm going to say, no, don't do it that way. I'm going to say, let's find a better way. Or if somebody says to me, oh, this is my bad leg, I'm like, can we use a different way of describing that? And it takes a bit of time for them to think of, oh, how else am I going to say that? But we just say, it's the side that doesn't work as well. It's different to this is my bad side. That's very important as well, like I say, for how people's experience is. Because if you keep getting told, no, you're not good enough in all the things you do, you're going to start to believe that. And that's not really my philosophy. I want, like you said, to make that person shine through and see who they are. If I keep feeding them the positive affirmations of what they can do, instead of focusing on the things they think they can't do, everything changes for them.
Oh, it does. Because like exactly the same people go, oh, that's my bad side. I said, we're all the same. No two sides are exactly the same. I said, but we'll say, oh, that's our non-dominant side. And they go, oh, okay. So like you said, it's a choice of words. It's not what you see, but how you see it. So it's still empowering them. So rather than just go, oh, I'm just going to work on my good side all the time and then just, try and do my best to get through on the other side, I go, no, let's start with that side first. You know, the non-dominant side, or, you know, the one that's a little bit more challenged, or, you know, whatever it is. It's still empowering words because, you know, before we know it, that side is just as strong as the other side. But if we choose to ignore it, it will never change.
And the body is always listening, right? Whatever you say about it is always listening, and it will entertain it if we tell it often enough. Yeah, it will become that. Amanda, you know what you described earlier, working with a client and adjusting their shoulder and all that. It sounds to me like you are a combination of a physiotherapist and a chiropractor, all wrapped up in one as well.
So I like to call myself a holistic movement specialist. I have got, you know, massage skills. I have got shiatsu diploma behind me. I've got Pilates. I've got deep understanding of anatomy. I've got the Franklin method and the brain stuff. I've got functional neurodevelopment skills. Like, I'm very interested in how children move and how their brains are developing. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes into the system. But I think where I work from is I work from the body's perfect design of something, not from the pathology of it. Right? So if I can help my client envisage how it is meant to work, their healing process happens so much faster.
Yeah.
If you were going to a physio or an osteo, whatever, they're treating the acute scenario. So they're, you know, doing the necessary things to help the healing process at that time. They don't take it necessarily too much further to show this is how it's meant to be working. This is where we want it to go. So I do have great relationships with other practitioners who do that acute work, and then they come back through to me, and, you know, we educate back on how the movement design is meant to function.
I can totally get why you identify yourself with the role that you play in working with your clients, because of everything that you have learned, all the diplomas and certification that you've got, all the information and all the wisdom that you have is you. You know, they make who you are. They make, you know, your likes, your dislikes, your hobbies, and so because of that, you know, the identification is there, right, of the role that you play. And I can totally get and see where you're coming from, because then it makes you are who. Yeah, you're all the input that you have received, and then the output that you're giving to people, and every day when you work with people, and that's who you are. And to take that away from you, it's like, then you're not Amanda anymore, you know?
I do some really cool things, and that is because I'm so fascinated by the body and it is who I am. I often, when I'm out at the beach or walking around or eating a piece of fruit or something like that, I literally can see the body part in nature. So, you know, one day I saw these 3 sticks on the beach, and they looked like the nervous system. So it looked like a nerve that had got myelin sheath around it, which was all intact. The next one had started to fray. So it was like, oh, this is an unmyelinated one, you know? And I put that up as a post to show, like, this is your nervous system in nature. You know, I was in Japan a couple of years ago, and there was a tree trunk, a stump like that, and then with these branches running off of it, but it looked like a nerve dendrite. So then, you know, I do a quick video on this. Is like your nerve cell. Here's, you know, here's the nucleus. Here are the dendrites running off, and here's the axon. And, you know, so I explain our bodies through things that we're commonly used to seeing, because not many people are going to go and do a dissection and have the same sort of profound experience that I've had, or the desire to want to keep going and doing that kind of thing, you know? So I love sharing that kind of stuff. And I mentioned when I was first going to open my studio that I sat down and just did a business plan. And one of the things that was written there was that I was going to live authentically and be the product. Because if I'm not going to show up and do the work for myself, how can I expect my client to show up and do the work for themselves?
Yeah,
I think that might have been a very profound moment that I don't even think of all that often. But like you said, Alina, I'm still the same person whether I'm in the studio or at a cafe or whatever, because it just is who I am. You know, like you, Shamla, when I when I see people sometimes out in the public, I want to turn my head away because I know the conversation's always going to go back to, have you done this movement? What are you doing? Or someone's like, with this thing. And of course I'm going to share because it's what I do and it's what I know. I'm not going to say, book an appointment, I'll see you in 2 weeks, you know. I just still give advice wherever I am.
Yeah, it's who you are 24/7 all the time. It's just whether or not you're in your time or in work time, you're still the same person. And have you got Bear with you?
He's not with me, no. I don't have him on the weekend.
That's right. Okay.
I was just thinking of him right now because I have a video which I've not put up, but you know, when you just collect content, his kneecap is about this. It's about that tiny. And I did this little thing of playing with his kneecap and extending his leg and he just lies there and he lets me do it. But, you know, because I'm just so crazy about the body, it doesn't matter that it's not a human body. I can see in him the similarities. So that reminds me I should put that post
and
out.
I think too, like having like Bear Shamala is dog, yeah. So I'm sure you would have seen Bear. He's just gorgeous. And he's very much a star in Amanda's posts and stories. And I haven't been able to get to Amanda for quite some time, but I lived through Amanda through her posts and her stories. And, you know, and Bear he's at the studio the whole time and he sees everything. It doesn't matter if it's a newborn baby, if it's a child, if it's a pregnant person, if it's an older man or an older lady, it doesn't matter. This little dog is just, he knows exactly where he needs to be with any, you know, it doesn't matter who walks through the door. He just applies himself for what's needed at that time. And it's like a double healing in a way because you get Amanda, but you also get, you know, you get Bear at the same time. And then so when the two of them are out on the beach, and so the clients that do work with Amanda, I know I can really relate. So when Amanda pulls up a piece of something that's on the beach, she goes, now this is your spine. You capture my attention straight away because, you know, your work doesn't just stop inside those four walls. You know, you're constantly, you know, showing people other ways and explaining other ways. And, yeah, it's just beautiful.
And I think the teacher archetype in you is really strong. You know, it's just you know, who you are as a teacher.
And I know Shamala and I are exactly the same, you know, publicly, and we're having to deal with the public all the time. It's not often because we do live in the business and we are the business 24/7. It's not often we get to show the vulnerable side of things. And my vulnerability is when I fractured my rib and just basic movements. And I'd already been stuck on a piece of the gym equipment because I couldn't get up. So I had to work out a way where I could still get out of it without having to bend forward. So this particular time I was sitting down on the floor and I was sitting next to my client with a leg press and I went to do something. I couldn't do it. And I just burst into tears. And it was in the middle of about 11 o'clock during the, you know, so it was during the day. It was full of gym people. But funnily enough, it was only the person who I was with. And maybe one or two could see what was going on because you just spend your time being so strong all the time and so professional. But I was so limitless in what I could do. And by that time, I was in so much pain. Now I know why, because I didn't know that at the time. But just any movement, I just could not do. It wasn't just, oh, okay, here's a crutch, and then we'll assist you. It's just no, I just couldn't do it. And when I showed that vulnerability, like it made me real. And my client said, oh, there is a real person. It's not so much there was a real person. It was just I like to see that side of you because you're always, we'll be right. And I said, yeah, but I am that person anyway.
Yeah.
I said, yes, I know, but you can let your guard down. It's okay.
Yeah.
And because we don't get to show it that often.
Yeah.
I had a client years ago who said to me, like he bumped into me having a coffee in the village, and we sat down and we had a conversation, and at the end of it he said to me, it's really nice to interact with you outside of the studio, because I think he learned so much more about who I was as a person versus here I am with my professional hat on, and this is where we're at. And I I took that comment to heart so that I started to try and get out more and bump into my clients and have a conversation. And this couple that we were talking about that are going to Utah skiing, they can't attend my 10-year celebration. And they're feeling quite vulnerable about it because they want to be there because they enjoy coming so often. And so on Monday, I'm going to take them out for coffee, just the two of them, and have a little gathering together because, it's the relationship is what the important thing is in the business. It's not necessarily the money that's coming in the door.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think, it's a really good, place to be because, that's what we were talking about. You're not just a Pilates instructor, you're far more than that. And it's not just same as like Shamala. Shamala is just, not just a coach in what she does. It goes far beyond that, and it's that whole depth that you extend yourself because that's your life 24/7. And, you bring all those elements in what you do, but what you do is what makes your heart sing as well. It's not a job that you go to, say 9 to 5, you switch on, switch off, and then come home and do the same thing all over again the next day. It affects you 24/7 on all different levels, personal and, business relations as well. And it's, but it's really nice to give to the community. And like what you said, those celebrations, like that would mean more to me to be able to acknowledge those people, to say thank you, even though you can't be here, but thank you.
Definitely. And in the work that we do, like all three of us, is the passion that came first, right? The passion and then doing it. And as difficult as it may be sometimes, like you have to put on so many hats to keep the business running. And, oftentimes I'm sure, like me, both of you don't see it as business. You see it as part of living your purpose, I joined this business network and actually I created this business network. And in this business network, everybody's talking about their business and how they want to expand and all that. But when it comes to my turn, I would say, I'm living my vocation. And they go like, okay. Like, then what's different, So I explained to them that what is different. And so I think they appreciate the different input, right? Like when you see what you do as a vocation but versus a business, you bring in a totally different set of values into it. And I think all three of us, I think we're living our vocation.
Yeah, definitely. And I always say the more I learn, the more I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. I just want to find something and share on my screen quickly. I mentioned Ikigai.
I love that.
And I think this is just such a, this is exactly, look at the words that you've used. So what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at, and where they intersect is your passion, your mission, your vocation, your profession. And when all of those are working together, that's the definition of Ikigai.
Yeah.
And I think that is just like, I only learned that a few years ago, but it's sometimes, in these businesses of ours where we are the front facing of everything, and you sometimes think, well, what am I doing? Do I not have any other hobbies outside of this? Do I not have more than this? When you can look at it and you say, actually, this is who I am, and it filters into everything, then that's a super powerful image.
The message is just continues to being, who you are, and because it shows the realism and the real life of what it is that we're doing is real, not what it's, that Instagram and reality. It's reality 24/7.
Yeah, it is.
Authenticity is the word.
That's the word. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so, it is true. And I think the more that we can attune to be that, it helps other people be the same.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, I don't know about both of you, but I imagine it would be the same. It's like people look at what I do and then say, hey, what is it that you eat when you do this? What is it that you use when you get a cold? Where can I get this thing? Like, where's this massage gun from? Or, like they're constantly asking because they see you living what you do. So then they are trying to go on the same path of that. And I think whether they are as successful as you are at doing it or not, the fact that they're just trying to look at a new way of living or being inspired by what's in your smoothie. You know, like if you've got your smoothie standing out there, they're saying, oh, that's what you're having now. You know, and just being curious, and then, you know, they add little bits. I often have clients, you know, come through after a week and say, oh, I thought of you this weekend when I did this. Or, you know, like, I'm noticing that I'm standing better and that's all because of you. And I'm like, no, it's not because of me. It's because of you. But thank you. Yeah. Thank you for thinking of me when you are standing up tall.
Yeah. And that's interesting. That's why I tend to showcase Noosa a lot. And, you know, if I do a post selfie run, you know, like a lot of my clients know I haven't been able to exercise, you know, like it's just been so hard because I had, you know, all that time off with my broken rib, and then it's just been so intermittent. So every time it's a struggle, but I never complain. I always say, yes, it's hard, but it's done. But prior to that, it's always, you know, look where I am, not look what I'm doing. And, you know, I'm not talking about you have to, you know, run intervals. I'm not talking about you have to walk through it. I'm just talking about look where I am. You know, enjoy the nature to help people get out. And then, you know, people see the photos and then they'll try it themselves and then they'll get the benefit from it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just because they've just seen a picture that looked, you know, encouraging, you know, or inspiring. And, you know, they've done it themselves. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Not copying what you do or anything like that. It's just you're just the gatekeeper to, you know, some of these things that, you know, people haven't yet quite tried or, you know, walked through. And, you know, Shamala, that's, you know, when you talk about going to the beach, you know, when, you know, for your mindset, you know, I was thinking about you the other day and I thought it'd be nice for you to have a photo, you know, just of your background. This is where I go to for my, you know, peace and quiet. You don't have to have your face in it. You could just be at the back or, you know, because people see that snippet, the person behind it, that real person. They can relate, identify because it's that human connection. That's what AI can't do.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is, for my marketing, right, sometimes it's a little bit hard. I share more educational stuff or else I'll tip over to like oversharing. So, you know, I always have to find that fine line, right, as to where it is. Because I have clients asking me things like, oh, do you still have emotional issues? I'm like, of course, you know, I'm still constantly, you know, processing and dealing with stuff, right? Because stuff comes up. And they go, oh, okay, because you don't show it. I said, because I use the tools well. I know how to process and I know how to sit with it. And I know how to go through the whole thing, you know, like, what to do when this comes up, and I work with a therapist and they go like, oh, okay. You know, like in their minds, they think like if someone does the work that I do, like you have no more problems. I'm like, no, I'm human.
Yeah, that's it. People just want to know that you are human.
Yeah. So I do share my personal stories, usually in private group work.
I've seen your family ones, yeah.
Yeah, I do. If I do group work, I usually do share like very much more intimate details, you know. But if it's like, I mean, social media, I mean, you don't want to go into it too much. So yeah, I have to find that fine line, right, between how much to share and vulnerability and all of that.
Sure. For new viewers, well, if you would like to get in touch with me, you can do so on my website, which is www.connectedpilates.com.au, or follow me on socials, Instagram or Facebook. And I also have a YouTube channel if you want to do, you know, home workouts.
Goodbye from Alina in Noosa, Queensland, Australia.
Yeah, and this is Shamla from Singapore signing off. See you all very soon. Bye.